first up, we have a talk session which revolves around food safety culture and transparency, a business imperative. I'd like to invite Ms. Tilla Kovac-Rahoy to the stage, who will be moderating this session. So we'd like to continue the discussion around food safety culture through a panel discussion. And I'd like to introduce the panel members. I'd like to invite Mr. Subhajit Gupta, Head Corporate Quality at Britannia Industries Limited, to the stage. He's a food safety and quality management professional with 23 years of experience in the field. Previously, he's also been associated with ITC Limited and Coca-Cola. Thank you, sir. Please have a seat. Next up, I'd like to invite Dr. Aboy Ojha, professor at IIM Bangalore, to the stage. A round of applause, please. Professor Ojha started teaching in the University of Alberta, Canada during his doctoral program. Prior to joining IIMB, he was an assistant professor at Laurentian University, Canada. He worked as an engineer in the Bombay division of ONGC before pursuing doctoral studies in management. Thank you so much for coming, sir. Next up, we have Mr. Chaitanya Mupalla, CEO of Almond House. A round of applause, please. He's the founder of Manam Chocolate and Distinct Origin. He's also India's first level 3 certified chocolate taster. Thank you, sir. And finally, we have Dr. Nimish Shah, General Manager, Regulatory Affairs, South Asia of Unilever. He's accomplished global health and sustainable innovations as a business leader, and he has 3 decades of multi-domain innovation and technical experience, including leading India business of 2 international not-for-profit organizations. Thank you, everyone. Here, the industry think tank talk about the leverage one can get by fostering a robust food safety culture. Over to you, Ms. Tilla, to continue the discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, welcome everybody, all the guests on this panel discussion where we are going to talk about food safety culture. As you all know, food safety culture is defined by the global food safety initiatives as shared values, beliefs, and norms that affect mindset and behavior toward food safety in, across, and throughout an organization. To ensure the safety of the entire supply, food safety culture at all levels plays a vital role. The common factor across all these types of cultures is people. And what determines whether a culture of food safety is in place is how they respond, react, make decisions, and behave. Strong food safety culture is characterized by commitment from leadership to prioritize food safety, continuous education and training for all employees, open communication about food safety practices and concerns, and lastly, accountability and a proactive approach to identify and address food safety risks. In a sense, fostering a strong food safety culture is vital for ensuring the safety and quality of food products, thereby protecting public health and enhancing business sustainability. As our Honorable Minister said as well, it's very crucial to have healthy food in place to ensure the growth of India. If India is going to be a superpower in the future, and also nowadays there is a huge potential there, we need to be able to foster food safety culture. So to talk on the topic, we have with us today Dr. Aboy Ojha from IIMB, Dr. Nimish Shah from Unilever, Mr. Chaitanya from Almond House, and Mr. Subhajit Gupta from Britannia. Each of them are leaders with knowledge and experience in their own organization. We would like to start this session with Dr. Aboy. Dr. Aboy, you have spent a lifetime understanding organizational behavior. How do you see the culture impacting the behavior of people, and how does it shape the organization?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah. Organizational culture, of course, impacts behavior, and the general textbook definition is very similar to the definition used by the Food Safety Organization when you're defining food safety culture. It's about shared values, beliefs, and norms, and how these impact behavior. From an organizational behavior perspective, there are three tools you could say management has to ensure that a subordinate or a junior behaves in a particular fashion. Okay, so in this case, we're talking about how does a foot soldier adhere to safety standards. So the first tool is supervision. The manager or the supervisor looks over the person to see that he or she is performing tasks the way they should be done. The second is to have a lot of processes. And again, the supervisor, in some sense, ensures that there's compliance with the processes. There may be later on audit to ensure that the processes have been followed. And culture is the third one. So the difference between culture and supervision and processes is the ownership of quality when you're exercising supervision and you're enforcing processes is with the manager, the hierarchy, or the regulator, or whoever. Okay. But when you enforce culture, and when the culture is very well imbibed, the ownership of safety is taken by the foot soldier. He or she owns safety. I think I heard the introductory speech. We had a quote from Ford talking about doing things right without somebody looking over you or something of that kind. And then we had Chilla talk about a lot of the processes, et cetera, et cetera. At some stage, I think if we overdo it, people think the problem is the quality manager's problem. The problem is the manager's problem. If the supervisor is not there, the auditor is not there, I can cut corners. Okay. So at some stage, culture is really there if it becomes habitual behavior. And I like the comments that Chilla made about, every society, and I think the minister also made that, every society has some cultural norms about good food, etc. We know some food is not to be eaten stale, some food is whatever. These are I don't think we have, when we are going in for mass sort of processed food, we have done a good job of connecting to the foot soldier in the language that he or she can understand. It becomes a compliant issue. It's a little bit of a cat and mouse game. And I think the more training and education that you were mentioning, we can get people to imbibe certain habits. Ultimately, for me, culture is unthinking behavior. Without thinking, without analyzing, I do things right, okay? And I think your organization's efforts into getting people to develop those habits which are inherently safe would be good for the country, as I said. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for this very great summary. I especially admire this last mention about culture is unthinking behavior. I think this is a great message to take with us. Dr. Nimish, you come with a huge experience and have seen the industry growing. Organization culture has been an ongoing theme, especially in large operations. When did you see that this food safety culture coming into the prominence?
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think the food safety culture, the way I have seen it evolve over the last 25 years in the industry, and I'll perhaps have more insights about Unilever. I think when it comes to safety, there are about three aspects that we drive. One is, we show a mirror and we say that you are the one who's responsible for the safety of the product you make. Yeah. So while there is top-down commitment and continuous engagement about saying that, we need to drive food safety, we want to land that ownership about food safety to everyone, right from the top to the bottom, and also across functions. So it's not only that, okay, the person who's on the shop floor producing the food needs to be trained. There is also equivalent training right from formulation, preparation, design, etc. So food safety culture is not only top to bottom or vertical, it is horizontal as well. All the kind of pawns in the game need to be very highly committed to food safety. So that is one. The other thing is also about being responsive to changing food safety priorities and issues. Yeah. Uh, for example, let's say a country like India. What is it that is the most primary issue about food safety overall in this country as compared to, say, a developed country in Europe? Yeah. And clearly, as far as health is concerned, it is more about microbial hazards, the issues relating to pathogens and all that, that needs to be primarily focused on without diluting anything else, but that is something that needs to be brought, and therefore you will see very high emphasis on personal hygiene, the need to training people on those aspects much more than others, because many of the other things are taken care of. So it depends on the societal context while operating in a certain country, what you prioritize and what you lay emphasis on. I think the third thing also is that, we need to drive this understanding that food safety is never about all or none. Yeah, it is not to say that there is a zero tolerance to certain contaminants. Yeah, and therefore one has to have a risk-based thinking as far as safety assessment is concerned. And that is very important because, one can get very easily carried away by somebody just, making a dramatic revelation, oh, this food contains something which is bad for health. Whereas large global organizations are very well committed, entrenched to food safety science, that they can bring in the proper health perspectives of a certain ingredient, its safety, and to the extent to which it can be, it is safe for the human beings. Yeah. And this aspect is really, really very important because we have a processed food industry. We are the largest producers, second largest producers of food in the world, and we need to ensure that that food reaches its end consumer in a proper preserved way. Yeah, and therefore to bring that risk-based thinking is much more important than projecting or socializing a more protective or preventive principle. So that are some of the cultural aspects that we need to strengthen, I would say, as we go along on this journey where India will become, or is already, the food basket of the world, so to say.
Very well summarized. Thanks a lot. So far we have heard two experts from bigger corporations. And my third question would be for Mr. Chaitanya. You are owning a smaller industry, very Indian, it's your origin and culture as well. What kind of challenges do you see which are very India-specific and small business-specific as well? Any examples you can share with us? Is building a culture in Indian companies any different from larger corporations?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Before I came here, I thought I was probably the least qualified to be on this panel, but now I realize I'm the least qualified to be in this room.
I definitely disagree. As a company owner, you have very thorough understanding about culture.
Yeah. See, I run a company called Almond House. We make traditional Indian sweets and savories. We run a couple of other brands. We have a quick service restaurant brand. We do some ice cream. I also run another company that works with farmers, grow cacao in India, and we make Indian craft chocolate from that cacao. That's just the brief background. I agree with Professor Roja, and I'll run the risk of spewing a cliche, but that we do believe that culture eats strategy, and in this case, process for breakfast, right? And I've had some fortune of being able to journey with this challenge with a category that's extremely traditional. And I've also had the fortune of being able to journey with that category through scale. So primarily it was challenges that were simpler, that are to get people to start working on a table instead of sitting on the floor, right? And there is traditional wisdom in sitting on the floor and working. It just doesn't work for us today. And it also is on this context of how in India we were never an eating out culture to begin with. Eating out is a very, very recent phenomenon in the larger scheme of things. We're a Puritan culture. We either ate at home or somebody else's home. So it was never a question for us, food safety. Some of the things that we've been able to do, and I'll be a little careful because Sarika and Ramesh help us navigate some of these challenges, so I don't want to paint a rosy picture, lest I be questioned, is how do we create ownership for food safety, right? And it really is something that you came back to, where you resisted from calling it food safety but called it quality. We say quality is everybody's job, right? It starts from the top, but it also goes through the security guard who has to clear the truck. It goes to the guy who has to unload that truck, because these are all opportunities to catch something before it potentially reaches a consumer, right? And these things cannot be built into process for companies that are really small or very nascent in their process building journey. So how we do that is by creating ownership. And that ownership gets created through various ways. Of course, one of them is sits on this need on that Maslow's hierarchy of eventual self-actualization, is that we need to give meaning, right? So we try to give meaning, that this is your workplace, you spend more than half a day here, we have to find meaning in what we do, and these things stick. And they only stick when you're genuine and authentic about it, and really at the end of the day, everybody who works for some meaning beyond roti kapda makan. And when we create that, it tends to work. So we've been okay, we've been fairly successful. And now that we've reached that, critical mass of being able to create that notion that quality is everybody's job, now scaffolding of process helps run that and keep that going. But if we went process first, it wouldn't have stuck. Does that answer your question?
Very well. I especially support the logic that sometimes simplicity is the key. The simple way to find the route to everybody, and then first listen and understand people, and then build up the processes around that. Thanks a lot. Mr. Subhajit, your question is the next one. The brand, which nobody needs a special intro, has a tagline as "Eat healthy, think better." How would you describe as the food safety culture at Britannia, which is an Indian company yet a large corporation?
Thank you. Thanks, Sheila, for the question. So, as you all know, Britannia is a responsible, total global foods company. And our vision is to be a responsible, total foods company by serving products with exciting goodness to the consumer every time in every bite. Now, when you say responsible, a large part of the responsibility is towards the consumer health and well-being. And here lies the culture of food safety in Britannia. This is the core where the food safety culture lies. Now, and our commitment is to deliver this exciting goodness to consumers by building and also nurturing the food safety culture by design and at every level. Now the question is, what is food safety culture? So there are many definitions like shared values, visions, norms, which lead to a successful food safety approach. There are many definitions of food safety culture. If I need to describe food safety culture in a very simple language, which can be understood by even a shop floor worker, a mature food safety culture is something where people follow the work practices even when nobody is watching them. I think that describes what the food safety culture is. And in Britannia, what we do, we integrate this food safety culture in our product and process design, in our people, in our policy, and finally in our communication. So coming to the product design part, yes, food safety plays a very important role right from the product design stage. And many of you must be knowing the term FMEA, right? Failure mode effect analysis. So we do this failure mode effect analysis right from the design stage. This is nothing but a very scientific analysis of the risks associated with the products and the ingredients. And also, it allows us to deploy appropriate controls to mitigate those risks. So that is about the product design part, where the food safety plays a very important role. Second, another very important aspect is the ingredients and packaging material which you use in our product. Now, there is a very stringent standard for every ingredient and packaging material. And also we have a very stringent approval process for any new suppliers. And this is again, is a part of the design which ensures that food safety is inbuilt into our product. So the third part is, once the product has been designed, the materials have been procured, now it is our responsibility to deliver the product as per the design. And here also, the food safety principles are integrated into the process and infrastructure design. And also we invest heavily in technology so that the product can be delivered consistently in a safe manner. Again, that is coming as a part of the design. And when nobody is watching, then also you can deliver the product safely. And the next step, again, once the product is manufactured with everything all right, the product has to reach the consumer in a safe manner. How do we do that? So at the very design stage, when the product is under design stage, the product is sent for a travel test. Because you know, especially biscuits and rusks and cakes, whatever you call them, bakery products, these are very fragile in nature, number one. Number two, Britannia also manufactures, Britannia is also into dairy products, which are microbiologically sensitive. So we send them for a travel test. So what this travel test does, it indicates, it gives us an idea, understanding whether the product is susceptible to travel, to handling, to storage, and even to climatic conditions. And if there is any adverse impact on the product, that is corrected in the design stage itself before we commercialize the product. Now, this is all about the design part. Now coming to the people part. So what we do, we engage with people like with our employees, with our workforce, and even with our business partners through a structured capability building program, and which leads to a culture of zero defect and 100% safe products. And one more thing which is very important, people in Britannia at every level, they are empowered to promote food safety. And they are also appropriately rewarded. I think you were mentioning in your presentation. So this rewards and recognition is very important for them. Finally, there are two more things. One is, as I mentioned, the policy part. The food safety policy is regularly reviewed and relevant changes are made as and when required. That is very important to be relevant with the revised regulations, with the revised consumer expectations, with the revised safety norms. And finally, the communication part. So we have a very strategic, very structured way of communicating food safety requirements to our people down the line so that they take appropriate ownership of food safety at the ground level. So that is how I think we create a culture of food safety in our company. Thank you.
So thank you. It is a very thorough process and program what you have developed. So for sure, all aspects and angles are completely covered. Yeah, so it was a very interesting difference between a small entrepreneurship versus a very advanced business. And I would definitely take away this by design methodology, because sometimes it's an interesting thing, also we do it in Lindstrom, that instead of going and immediately selling something for our customers, we first just listen and see what they are doing. And instead of immediately giving the solution, first we understand the process, what exactly they are doing, and then based on them, providing the best solution. And this is, I think, the beauty also of a good, well-qualified and experienced quality manager, that we should not always just create the process itself. We have to understand why a certain people is doing certain things in a certain manner, and then adjust the procedure according to that. So very well said, and I think it's a very advanced approach, and for big corporations, definitely the go way. Okay, next one for Mr. Aboy, please. First of all, anything that you would like to add, comment on what the industry folks are saying? And secondly, how does one resolve the differences between their personal beliefs and the organizational culture?
Okay, thank you. Just brief comments on Unilever and Britannia first. Okay, these are large corporations and they are very central to the kind of processed food industry in India. And I think if I can invoke, the thought processes are what I would call very Western, relying on processes. And so now I would like to contrast that with Chaitanya. He mentioned, that we're getting people who, based on your own society you grew up in, and I like what the minister mentioned, that we had a sense of how food should be prepared, consumed, etc., etc. A lot of it might be steeped in what you might call religion, okay? But yet we knew when to wash our hand, we know what to do, all these. And maybe the meaning was given through religion. And now we are pulling these people out of context and putting them into a very factory-like environment where the meaning making has got disrupted. And so we need to give them that new meaning. So I might want to talk to him. That meaning making is very important. Indians are not very process oriented, okay? So you tell them this, step 1, step 2, step 3, we don't follow. And you can see it on the streets, the way our traffic goes. You have to sell that meaning. And I think if I get a little accusatory, a lot of large organizations don't spend enough time giving meaning to that person. We are a little feudal. We blame that person for not following processes, but the blame is with us. We have not given meaning to them in terms of why they should follow certain things. In their own home, they may be limited, etc., etc. They follow all the processes because there is some meaning to it. Now, meaning might come from religiosity, but they have their own sense of hygiene, cleanliness, etc., etc. We, in the industrial environment, we have to give them that meaning. So some of the smaller firms, I think, should maybe consult him and learn from him that The vendor, street vendor, we've always buying from the street vendor from ages. And they never got this chemical to mix with the gobi. What they used was safe. Now the big industry is giving them that chemical. So to put the blame on that guy for not being using sort of carcinogenic materials doesn't lie with the vendor. It lies with some of us sitting here who are producing these chemicals as food safe, etc., etc. So we need to find the thing. I kind of err on the side of looking at my lower strata Indian who has his own sense of hygiene and food safety, etc., etc. It's for the industrialists to kind of allow him or her to be as safe as he was before. I talk about the pani puri. The minister talked about the pani puri. I grew up, pani puri, it used to be given in a small leaf, and we consumed that pani puri and threw the leaf. It was environmentally safe. Today that has become a plastic cup. My habit has remained the same. After consuming, I throw it. So I'm environmentally unfriendly, or the puchkawala is environmentally unfriendly. It's the industry guy has replaced his leaf with this plastic. Okay. So again, we need to examine how we are approaching this, and meaning making is the only way to help these guys. Okay. So coming to you, if you want them to work into industrial environments, catch them young as much as possible. I mean, if I take the Taj group, when it prepares people for its industry, it takes them after 12, give them that training. So when they are still impressionable, then you sort of make them more process oriented, etc., etc. Hiring an adult who has kind of firmed up his or her views on what is thing. When the supervisor is not there, they will do things the so-called efficient way. Okay? So that's my take on it. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. This last couple of words really stick with me. Like changing adults and very core behavior is very, very difficult, almost impossible. Dr. Nimish, if I may, culture is also critical when it comes to sustainability, something you have also been championing. What are the changes required to blend in sustainability into the food safety program? And what, if any, are the changes required to ensure that it does not hinder the food safety culture?
Thank you. I was just thinking about what you said, and I recalled an incident about a decade ago when somebody had come to ask about this new formulation or this new food. And the question that my senior asked that person when he came into the room is that, think about this, will you give it to your children? And that's the aspect about, making it real, making that come alive in absence of processes as well. Yeah. So thanks for reminding me of that incident. Coming to this safety and sustainability, in fact, it is one of the biggest challenges facing food safety. Because if you see the way climate change is changing food systems, right from crop productivity to crop pests, everything is at a higher risk than before. Yeah. And what could a processed food industry or the food sector can do is, as a minimum, in order to be safe and sustainable. It's almost paradoxical, but I think we need to be that. And the first thing that can be done by everyone in this whole space is to prevent food losses. Because food loss is...
It's working. Just keep it closer, please.
Sorry. In terms of ensuring safety while pursuing sustainability goals, it is very important as the first step to prevent food losses. And this is something that I have been very interested in, passionate about in terms of bringing that food safety and sustainability together. Because think about a crop. Let's say a simple thing like, say, rice, We spend huge amount of energy, greenhouse gas in making that rice, polishing it. It goes to the packaging, transport, comes to our houses, gets stored, and then we cook it. So across all this energy is consumed. When we consume it, of course, there is a portion left which we waste, yeah? And that being solid is more likely to undergo anaerobic degradation, which will lead to formation of methane, which has a far higher greenhouse gas impact as compared to carbon dioxide. So I would say that, for me personally, wasting food is almost a crime. And to bring food safety and sustainability together, it is very, very important to reduce food waste, number one. The other thing also is, how do we understand the changing food systems and food preferences? We take example of millets, very good in terms of nutrition and equally good in terms of environment because they need less water to be produced, yeah? Have we, as a food safety community, now undergoing or undertaking studies to understand what are those key risks or key hazards that needs to be unraveled from the millet and the millet produced point of view that are different from current cereals in terms of food safety? So that is also a focus area of, say, R&D and innovation that needs to be unraveled. We simply cannot just say that, okay, I take millet, I was using cereal somewhere and I replace it with millet, because how it represents to the contaminants, how it represents to the organisms as a substrate might be different, and that needs to be undertaken. Lastly, I also must, drive the attention to the evolution of microorganisms. The kind of microbes that were affecting plant systems and animal systems before are different, are going to be different than what they will impact in future, given the rise in temperatures, water levels, or water stress, whatever be it. And therefore, a keen eye on these emerging issues like antimicrobial resistance, new pathogens, etc., needs to be kept a keen eye on in the context of the environmental challenges that we are encountering. Internally, for companies, of course, there will be challenges of reducing energy consumption, going to greener energy sources, etc., and what impacts that change could have on food safety is something that the food sector also needs to focus on. So these are the few pointers on the bridge between sustainability and food safety.
Thank you so much. So prioritization and the key points to focus on that's the key to avoid that sustainability would overlap food safety. Thank you. Mr. Chaitanya, and now a very different question is related to trust. Because we so far talked a lot about giving people meaning, but then creating trust is something very different. So trust is a key ingredient in culture. And the question is also how we are going to build it. And we all aware that you are incentivizing your outlet managers for bringing the customers to your factory to build this trust. And your new chocolate cafe has everything visible to the customer. How do you remove the anxiety within your employees? And what has that done to the culture of your organization?
I need some help understanding what anxiety you're referring to.
Customer is observing them.
Okay. I don't think there is an anxiety. In fact, there is a sense of desire to show, right? Because where we came from was this was something that we were doing a few years before the pandemic hit, etc., because we came from a climate where this category is questioned a lot. And we are extremely premium. We sell the most expensive Kaju Barfi in the country. So we wanted to shift focus from increasing homogenization on the marketing front, where everybody has fancy stores and nice packaging and that sort of a customer experience, but nobody knows how any of this stuff is made. So we built a factory in the middle of the city, and there was a program. We do school tours, college tours, and store managers are incentivized to bring, like you were referring to, bring customers and guests to the kitchen. And that really helped us when the pandemic hit. The pandemic was a little bit of a tailwind for us. But fundamentally, we sell trust, right? And that's our product. Apart from, of course, product and experience that we're selling, we need to create reasons to believe. And these used to be, up until recently, part of our program to create these reasons to believe. But we came from a place that, these are not things that we're doing for spiel. These are things that we have to do anyway. So we might as well make use of them because nobody else is. But then, I'm also coming back now because we're kind of retracting from that now, because you can't taste hygiene, and we're selling food, and we need to bring the magic of food back and the beauty of the fact that we're selling something magical, right? And so then you take a stance where, this is a given. This is the bare basic need. And it's a evolution. And that's where that category is in its evolution, because that category has historically been, our category of Indian mithai has historically been seen with skepticism. So if the question was how do you build trust, somebody, I think sir had referred earlier that it takes decades to build trust, but it only takes a moment to make it evaporate. So the anxiety is not with the employee when people are coming to see. The anxiety is with the entrepreneur, because it's going to evaporate. So we always say that this is a business that we don't sleep much, because our job doesn't end when we sell. We're in a gifting category. It needs to be gifted, then it needs to be consumed, and then it needs to be adequately evacuated till we are relieved of our stress. So I think the anxiety isn't so much of an issue at an employee level. In fact, it's more of a ownership or pride thing that they would like, because once we did it for 3-4 years, then that becomes it. The brand association is so strong with food safety and quality. Now it's so strong that we want to actually separate ourselves from it now, because like I was saying, we're talking so much about food safety. We're not selling lab equipment, right? We're selling food. So I don't think there is an anxiety in that sense. More sense that, okay, we've cracked this, but then, it's not a finite process, right? It's iterative. So that's where the culture helps, that it's constant, it's every day, and it doesn't end one day, or you haven't achieved a goal.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Chaitanya. I think it's a very good summary of yes, transparency is important, and communication about food safety in your organization and in your production is important, but the brand message is also key, and we should really always build the brand communication in a way that, yes, food safety is mentioned as well, but the core brand message should be consistent and focused. And then the last question for Mr. Subhajit. What kind of a top management commitment is required to bring in the cultural change? Also, you probably have a ton of suppliers. How do you instill that culture in your suppliers as well and help them in their journey? You already have mentioned the supplier engagement programs beforehand in your former answer. So it would be maybe very valuable for the audience to hear some advice and details, what exactly you are doing with your suppliers.
Thank you. So when you talk about food safety management system, it's like an iceberg. So a part of it which is on the surface is visible through its documentation, through its facility, through its work practices. But the larger part which is underlying, which plays a pivotal role in creating the food safety culture, in promoting the culture, is the top management commitment, which is not easily visible from the surface. But it is the driving factor for having a successful food safety culture in any organization. So the top management gives the right direction to the organization by including food safety into their business goals. That is very important. Number two, by providing the right kind of resources to attain those goals. And third is by creating a platform where all the food safety related issues of the company can be discussed for required solutions. So top management plays a very, very critical role in creating a food safety culture. Now, the top management is also responsible to define the roles and responsibilities of people at various levels, starting from top. Because what happens is that this food safety culture is not a one-size-fits-all approach. So the role needs to be defined for each and every function, for each and every position. And here comes the importance of top management. For example, a manager, say for example, purchase manager, when he is selecting a supplier, there are two things he should keep in mind. One is obviously the supplier should be economically viable, but at the same time, he cannot ignore the fact that it needs to meet the food safety requirement of the company also. Similarly, a maintenance manager in a company, when he's working on a machine, he needs to keep two things in mind. One is that, yes, the machine downtime should not be very high. At the same time, the machine should not contribute negatively to my food safety aspects. So, if I briefly say, top management sets the tone and direction. The company's vision and mission, it is the top management who breaks it down into various expectations for various roles so that they can be met and the food safety culture can be sustained in the company. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe any advice regarding suppliers?
Oh, sorry, I missed
Thank
that
you.
part. Sorry. So, since, as you mentioned, so in Britannia we have around 500 to 600 suppliers for ingredients as well as packaging materials. And we consider our suppliers as our key business partners. So, the first step is when the supplier is not an approved one, then as I mentioned in the beginning, we have a very stringent approval process for any new supplier. So we go to their facility, we assess their infrastructure, process, systems, people capability. Also, we assess their products in our lab and in external lab. We assess everything. And after assessing, if they qualify all these requirements, then they are onboarded. But that's not the all. Once they are onboarded, they are our business partners. So what we do, we have a continuous performance monitoring program for vendors. And every vendor is audited. Their performance is monitored through their material performance, and they are categorized based on the risk that they are carrying. So we call it a risk-based categorization. And they are appropriately rewarded as well as penalized if based on their performance. So basically, we help them building their capability, their knowledge, their food safety culture, and also, in many cases, we upgrade them technologically so that they meet our food safety standards. They deliver the material in a safe manner every time. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good summary. And now, so first of all, thanks again for all the insights, for all our panel speakers. And now we are open to questions from the audience. So, any questions to our panelists? Yes, there is somebody. How much time I have? Still. A few more minutes. Okay. There's a hard stop for advisor. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, let's see if there's a question.
Yes, my question is to Mr. Subhajit Gupta. So myself, Pradeep from Praras Biosciences. We are in the process of implementing the food safety culture from this year, since the version 6 has come into the picture. Just I need to understand what are the challenges as a big organization you have faced to maintain the good food safety culture.
Thank you. So, as I mentioned, first of all, in Britannia, we have around, I'm telling from my experience, in Britannia, we have around 70 to 80 manufacturing units. And out of that, around 20 would be our own manufacturing units, whereas the balance is all third-party units. And you understand the challenges when we go and talk about food safety in a third-party manufacturing unit, right? But at the same time, I'll tell you, this is the question of mindset. So at the same time, Britannia is the company in India, only bakery company in India, which had gone for AIB recognition. I think many of you have heard of AIB, American Institute of Baking, which is having world's one of the most stringent food safety standards. So we started this journey in the year 2015-16, wherein we started with 3 of our own units. And now as on date, we have some 50 units which have been recognized by AIB. And for that matter of fact, AIB is also recognized by US FDA. So why I'm giving this example, out of these 50 units, some 20-25 units are third-party manufacturing units. It was very difficult initially to convince them to go for AIB because it calls for a lot of investment, a lot of cost, a lot of expenses. But at the same time, when they saw the benefits in other units in terms of changed mindset, changed approach to food safety, they agreed to go for it. And currently, I'll tell you, more than 30% of our volume is coming from those units. I'm talking about only the third-party units. So more than 30% of our volume is coming from the AIB recognized units. So the complete mindset has changed. So that's one example that I have given. So if you want, you can change the mindset of people, mindset of the shop floor people. Even we have taken this, we have expanded this, we have taken this forward to our distribution centers. Not the AIB, but the food safety culture, which I think I missed to mention. I talked about only our factories, but our distribution centers, wherein we have taken this forward, the food safety culture, capability development, awareness development. We have a policy called handle like egg. As I mentioned, biscuit is a very fragile product. So the shop floor people, the people at the floor, even at the distribution centers, they don't understand that this is a biscuit, this will break easily if I don't handle it properly. So we have rolled out a program which is called Handle Like Egg. We have created the modules in different regional languages. We have created audiovisual modules, we have created posters, we have come up with rewards and recognition policies, and that is how I think you can create that culture in your organization as well. Thank you. Yes, of course. Thank you.
Mike. Yeah. Before we continue the Q&A, Dr. Abhay Oja will be leaving to cater to his other commitments. I'd like to request Ms. Tilla to honor Dr. Abhay Oja with a small token of appreciation. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us for this session.
Thank you, folks. Nice talking to you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions for the panel? Mike, please.
I mean, it might sound bizarre, but you know, all these ISO 22000, AIB, all this, we are talking about food safety culture, and Professor Oja said it starts at home. We know that we have to wash and things. So don't you think, I mean, I know you have to have these things, but don't you think even without this, if we are responsible and think, we can have a good food safety culture? Because what I have been noticing is, you know, everybody is looking, are you AIB? Do you have BSc? Do you have ISO 22000? Do you have FSMS? And you're recognized only based on these recognitions. So what happens to these small players who cannot afford these recognitions, which you have to pay a lot to do that? So if you have a food safety culture, as you said, starting, you know, we know it at home, so the same thing could be there. It's something to ponder over, so I was just wondering if that is there. Because, you know, you just said AIB, can everybody have AIB? And then you're recognizing only based on AIB, there could be someone else who is doing it without AIB or without ISO 22000. I mean, anyone can just throw some light. Nimish, yes.
Yeah. Interesting question, and thank you for that. In fact, if you look at certifications, and the part of culture is already ingrained into it. So certifications cannot be on the basis of only systems and processes and data. And many of the certification systems talk about top management commitment, talk about culture as well. So it cannot be that you only have process. It's not an army wherein you only go with the processes and systems. Here it has to be done in both ways. So it is not with or without. It is both, in my view. Yeah. The next question is then can everybody afford it or not? I think it is also about the company's scale, brand, and its ambition to demonstrate to its customers and consumers, because companies may not sell directly to the end consumer, but they sell it to, say, retailers, and those retailers then have to ensure that, they are selling only the best brands. So in that context, that added value of a certain certification comes in. And maybe as soon as the small scale players gets a certain scale, they will also start on the same journey. I do believe that certification plays a very important role in the building the trust and assurance. It could be that the small players to begin with are striving for it, but as they go along, and I don't know whether, in the, say, largeness of, say, for example, somebody is selling food from home, how do I differentiate if there are two such vendors in my apartment, whether one is good or not? I don't have any reason. But when it comes to buying food from the market, I would look at something that assures me as a consumer. And therefore, I think certification systems have their place in the society.
I think I fully agree. You want to say something, sir? Or otherwise
So,
yeah.
just to supplement what Dr. Nimish said, like we have the education system, there's a certificate which is given to you that you have passed class 10 or class 12 or degree. And as and when you go up, you acquire higher degrees. At the base level for all food manufacturers is the FSSAI license, which has been mandated as a minimum certificate. As and when businesses grow large enough, then you acquire a higher degree of confidence because you're dealing with more people, you're dealing with more consumers. I know Babu Rao Singh Peda, in Hubli, or I know some establishments in Mysore where they're very religious, they've been there for 100 years. They've got such system that they will open the shop only for 3 hours. People have to stand in the queue, whether he is a minister or whoever it is. They'll have to stand in the queue, buy, and at 11 o'clock, religion is closed, he cleans. He doesn't have any certificate, but his pedas are so popular that it goes all over the world. In a similar way, Britannia is more than 105-year-old company. Started off with 259 rupees investment, today it is 18,000 crore company. Unless there was an inbuilt culture in the organization, such industries or such organizations will not stay for that long. In this process, we acquire higher degrees. Acquiring all the certifications, AIB and other things, it only gives us self-confidence and more confidence in the consumer.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And I would also like to add to what you said, sir, and what Mr. Nimish said, is that yes, certification is not mandatory for creating the food safety culture. It aids in creating the culture. I'll just give you an analogy which just comes to my mind. Everybody, every one of us, irrespective of religion, we do puja or we do whatever at home. So there is a poor person who also does the puja, and there is a rich person who also does the puja, and we use agarbatti. So without that also we can do puja if we have bhakti in our mind. And with that also we can do. It only creates the atmosphere, it only creates that kind of environment which helps us to calm down our mind, to bring that kind of peace. So I think AIB or FSSC or whatever you say aids in that.
I think certifications help, not because the certificate helps, it doesn't, but it brings framework. And for small organizations that are, they don't have the resources to have very strong management teams, the frameworks help. It's a checklist, it helps, right? It gives structure to the culture that you're building. So I guess it costs money if you want the certificate, but you can always lean on the frameworks and the structure that these programs provide to help you at least reach a certain level. I think to that extent, and that's how we've kind of looked at it. And it's not really, and eventually we will get the certificate, or we do get the certificate because we've grown that size. But when I started, I built my first kitchen, I built it on a CGMP handbook that I downloaded from the internet. And it really is common sense, and we were doing all the things, most of those things from beforehand. But it brought everything on a sheet of paper, it gives clarity for your manager to follow, it's easy, there's steps. So I think, it depends on how you look at them. If you look at them as tools, it really does help.
If I may, is it working now? Yeah, if I may add just a slight comment regarding that, because I fully agree that yes, the framework definitely helps for smaller organizations who cannot afford the certificates. But I do see in a global scale that in terms of communication, what can happen or what occurs in some company websites, instead of certified, they are using the wording, I'm compliant or I am following XY standards, which sounds good. On the other hand, I think it is a two-folded message, because if transparency is not coming together with this sentence, then it can backfire on the organization, because then it's just like, yeah, we know the framework, we know the rules, but we are not certified. So I think for a smaller organization, when they are saying like, yes, we apply the framework, but we are not going for certification, the transparency should be there as well to emphasize that on what level they are following this framework, to assure the consumers that we are really following the requirements. And it's not only a communication.
Yeah, so I mean that dichotomy comes when you communicate on it, right? So if you desist from communicating on it and show by practice only, as long as you don't make a claim, you're safe.
Yes.
Any other questions?
My question is to Mr. Chaitanya. Specifically for the startup or for the young entrepreneur, it is always sort of a balance between the growth mindset and bringing the quality and compliance culture within the organizations. And there are a lot of restrictions, either, as you said, that because of non-management team or, owner is doing everything. So what is your message in terms of owner's mindset in bringing this culture within the organization? And I'm referring not only purely as a food safety culture, but this quality mindset. Or you also mentioned that when my product goes, the consumer take it for granted that quality is there, hygiene is there, compliance is there. So from that context, I'm asking this question. Thank you.
I mean, if we expand it to the ambit of any sort of change management in the organization or culture building, it always starts at the top, right? It was referred to multiple times. So many of the panelists also mentioned the importance of top-down driving of culture. And now it also, it comes down to, let's take examples like, dignity of labor, right? It has nothing to do with food safety, but everybody knows what the organization stand is on how you behave with each other in the workplace, based on how the leader of that organization behaves with everybody else in that workplace. Similarly, it comes down to food safety. And for me, in food safety, I mean, whenever we have a lapse, I look at it as an awesome opportunity to shake everything up. And it's how emphatically you behave and how seriously you take it and how you rush to the ground, however small the incident or issue is. It really drives the nail in that coffin, right? Everybody knows that this is super important to this organization. It's super important to the boss. Nobody questions this. So nobody deals with it callously. So I think it always starts, if I don't take it seriously, nobody is going to take it seriously. And it's true for any organization, 10,000 people, 100 people, 500 people, it doesn't matter. Everybody is just looking for, like he said, that direction, right? And in smaller organizations, direction is leading by example. So I think it's super important that if it's not important to top management or the leader of the organization, it's not important to that organization.
Thanks a lot. We have time for one more question.
I'm Nivashri Kantam, studying BTech for Technology, third year in Niftam, Tanjavur. My question is for Dr. Nimish Shah. You talked about the food losses, right? As a food technologist, we are dealing with food processing with good quality culture. How can we contribute to overcome the food loss after food processing that are happening around the world? It's any suggestion for that?
So, your question is how do we reduce food losses further
Yeah.
through processing?
Yes.
So, definitely there are lots of avenues, and you are a technologist. Yeah. So I think the answer lies with you. I just wanted to, and not that I'm evading the question. I think as India, there is definitely a lot of opportunity to develop indigenous technologies for our food losses because our challenges are very different. We cannot have, for example, a refrigeration system because we don't have, or adequate refrigeration system because we are energy starved country. Yeah. So our issues are very local, and we will need to create through talent, STEM talent like yourselves, indigenous solutions that can help our massive food production system to sustain and remain safe and fresh until it reaches the consumer. Yeah? So I don't have a very specific answer, but I do believe that in terms of the future opportunity of next 5-10 years, people like you will lead the game and drive food processing industry such that safe and fresh food reaches the end consumer, minimizing losses. Yeah.
We have time for one more question.
Thank you so much. So this is Lalit from Agilent. My question is not particularly directed at either of you, but you can take it up. So just to set a bit of context, we are talking here about food safety culture within organizations, but I have the opinion that it's also being spread across consumers like me and the rest of us here. And in this day, in this day and age of social media and influencers, some of them have credentials as well. We are becoming more aware of what goes inside a packaged food product. My question is, why has it taken so long for organizations to reduce limits of, let's say, sugar? I wouldn't name any brand as such, but reduce sugar levels, or it could be additive levels. So that's one of my primary questions. So either of you can take it up.
I'll take it up. Let me extend that context that you're setting, right?
Yeah.
Because I am with you on this, because I'm also not on that side of the industry. The context that my extension is this, that the larger developed markets of Europe and North America, who've seen their processed food revolutions in the 80s and the 90s, are now transitioning into their whole foods revolutions, right? And the context that you're painting, it's day one of that story, because in India, the processed food revolution is just starting now. There's humongous central government subsidies for production facilities being built, frozen, processed. A lot of us in this room would have availed a lot of these subsidies. So we are just starting off. But what's interesting is that in India, we've always leapfrogged, right? The world moved from landline phone to car phone to cell phone. We leapfrogged to cell phone, right? We never had the car phone here. And here, our processed food capacity building is starting now, when we are already subscribing to this narrative of, or this desire to have whole foods, to know where our food is coming from, and all of that stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because we as consumers are now conscious about what's in our food, but at the same time we want scale and we have to feed these huge markets. So it's going to play out interestingly, and India has a history of leapfrogging trends. So I think we're going to do interesting things in that space. But then again, we we have a price pressure in our markets, right? And people want everything for cheap. So you want that 5 rupee chocolate bar from the supermarket, you're going to get it from really low quality ingredients or cheaper ingredients. And also quality in India as a word it has subjective definition. Quality is always misconstrued for productivity, which to my mind are two different things. And that diversion, we may be seeing it because we're in urban India and we're consuming YouTube shorts, but in real India, it's really about unit price sensitivity. It's really about getting that cheapest calorie. You know, you're working between 2 shifts at a factory or a coal mine. You need to have something quick to eat with that chai to fill your stomach, right? So that those real needs of feeding people at a economical price point still exist. It's just they're not part of our popular discourse. That's why we have the privilege to talk about millets and non-hydrogenated fats and all of that. And the real India there, they don't know and they have not reached there. So it's that the two worlds here is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see interesting things happen there.
Sure.
I just wanted to add one point. Information is different than intelligence. Okay? So what I do as a consumer when I eat a processed food, I use the latter, wherein science and nutrition is my decision-making thing and not a YouTube video. That's all I'll say.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was a very insightful session. We'd like to break for lunch. I'm sure everyone is hungry. The lunch break would be there for 45 minutes. So during this time, you'll have the opportunity to grab a plate, network with your fellow delegates, and recharge for the rest of the day's session. Lunch is arranged in the 3rd floor at the terrace, and the lunch coupons are pinned to your badges. And please be mindful of the schedule and reconvene by 2 p.m. as we have interesting sessions lined up this afternoon.
I made suggestions, but we couldn't. But then finally, I told her after a week, just reduce the sugar content by first 10%, see whether your market, without telling that, you see whether your marketing and your popularity remains. And she did the same, and she reduced the sugar by 25%. Because if you look at many of our recipes, we add too much of sugar, too much of thing. So without letting the consumer know, if you do the experiment, and it's working very well, they have reduced the sugar by 25% in the ice creams, and the children are still loving it. So I think, that is something which industry has to do.
So I think we are then getting to the end of the panel discussion. I fully agree the last spoken words, because at the end of the day, I think I can also agree with the fact that here in India, everybody loves eating. And we are connected to certain flavors. And flavor and nutrition and food safety, we should not compromise it. So my background is as a dietitian, so sometimes, educating people about this is the healthy food, so you have to eat raw broccolis or vegetables, and then they are like, yeah, but I'm not used to that. So it's very difficult to change the habits around that, and also teaching people to accept new flavors. And that's why I would say that it's very important that we are going all around the way, that we should have more healthier, less salt, less sugar, more fibers in our nutrition. But we have to keep in mind that changing the flavors, we used to grow up on the grandma's food. So it will take time for everybody to adjust to these new flavors. And when we are talking about processed food as well, one thing is when you change the ingredients, the production process might change as well. So it will take time for the technologists, for the R&D PD to figure it out how to do it. But still, you want to keep up your market. So it's not something what we can do very quickly. So education, process changes should go hands in hand. So thanks a lot. I really thank you for all our panelists for the fantastic discussions. Thanks for our audience for the great questions. And I think it's time to close the session now.
Yeah, I'd like to request Ms. Thila to honor our panel members. Dr. Nimisha, Mr. Chaitanya Mopalla, and also Mr. Subhajit Gupta. Thank you to all our panel members. Please feel to connect with them later as we break for lunch. I'd also like to invite Dr. Shashikant Kunagal to the stage to honor Ms. Silla.